The question is this extra capacity announced today by the Energy Minister, $600 million worth at least, is it worth the spend?
Here's Kieran, a $600 million announcement for a gas-fired power station in the Hunter from Energy Minister Angus Taylor, with Prime Minister Scott Morrison a notable absentee from the announcement. A 600 megawatt plant the industry and energy market operator argues you do not even need. 600 megawatts after the Prime Minister admitted last year that only 250 megawatts was probably needed and it could be provided by the private sector.
But it has to be 1,000 megawatts. It has to be 1,000 megawatts. Sorry? And what are the rules here? What are you actually asking for?
Well, the 1,000 megawatts are already being made up in part by some investments, which I believe definitely will go ahead. I think Energy Australia is very close to going ahead with a number of projects. As I said, there are a number of battery projects, there are a range of projects that will make up that 1,000, and that is the market.
So what's the missing piece?
Well, there's about 250 megawatts or thereabouts that we believe are going to be necessary to fill that plan out.
Well, this is 600 megawatts. Scott Morrison saying today in Victoria that those in the energy industry saying it isn't necessary just want prices jacked up.
I've heard the criticisms of those who don't mind electricity prices going up. I don't agree with them. I don't want electricity prices going up. Those in the energy industry don't mind it when energy prices go up because their profits go up. I'm for energy prices going down so Australian households can afford costs of living. So I'm not here to speak for the energy industry. I'm here to speak for Australian households. I'm here to back them in and make sure their electricity prices go down. So I know there's plenty of clever people out there who don't mind electricity prices going up for the big energy companies. I want to see those energy prices under control and going down, as we've seen since the last election.
There's a lot of scepticism about this announcement today in the energy industry, given the proposed 2023 timeline, with a suggestion to me a gas pipeline would have to be built out there and it would not be finished before 2025, 1 year before Snowy Hydro 2.0 comes on board, providing a whole new stream of energy. This is a gas peaker. It would only be used 1 to 2% of the time. Here's a possible political reason for this announcement today: the seats in play, particularly the one that the plant is being built in, Paterson, where Liberal polling has the government in front. 5% margin of Labor at the moment. Then there's neighbouring Hunter and Shortland. The Australian's Jeff Chambers pointed out today in an analysis piece the large number of marginal seat visits Scott Morrison and Anthony Albanese have already done this year. Top of the list, Paterson, with 5 visits from Scott Morrison. I also understand that the New South Wales Deputy Premier John Barilaro asked the federal government to expedite this announcement before the Upper Hunter by-election this weekend. And there is another belief behind why this has been announced: a sop to the National Party ahead of Scott Morrison being forced by the international community to commit to a net zero emissions target by 2050 later in the year. And if the intention was to wedge Labor along the way, it's already worked. Joel Fitzgibbon and the member for Paterson, Meryl Swanston, supporting the project.
Is that a good idea?
Yes, it is, Laura, unequivocally. You know, someone said to me yesterday, why is the government investing? Where is the market failure? There is market failure. Liddell is decommissioning in 2023. It's a 2,000 megawatt power generator. So we have an enormous gap.
Labor's energy spokesman and Joel Fitzgibbon's old mate Chris Bowen opposing it, calling on the government to justify the spending.
This proposal isn't justified by the economics. It isn't justified by the engineering. This is a proposal which Mr Morrison and Mr Taylor must urgently release the business case for. If they're so confident that this stacks up, release the business case to the Australian people. Show the Australian people why our EMO is wrong. Show the Australian people why the Grattan Institute is wrong. Show the Australian people why the experts are wrong. If they're so confident, they will release the full modelling, the full business case. I doubt they will.
I'm old enough to have interviewed the then New South Wales Premier Morris Yema in 2008 when he came up with the proposal to sell the state's electricity generators, when he said that he needed to privatise them to, quote, keep the lights on, unquote, in New South Wales. Now Scott Morrison says we need to nationalise energy production in order to, you guessed it, keep the lights on. which all reminds me really of this Yes Minister skit.
Bernard, I have served 11 governments in the past 30 years. If I'd lead in all their policies, I would have been passionately committed to keeping out of the common market and passionately committed to going into it. I would have been utterly convinced of the rightness of nationalising steel and of denationalising it and renationalising it. In capital punishment, I'd have been a fervent retentionist and an ardent abolitionist. I would have been a Keynesian and a Friedmanite, a grammar school preserver and destroyer, a nationalisation freak and a privatisation maniac, but above all, I would have been a stark-staring, raving schizophrenic.